Okay, so the recording has started for the webinar. First of all, hello everyone, and welcome to our medical science webinar on use of correct methods in medical science and approach to data verification. And this year, as the medical science team of MedSci Europe during 2019 and 20, we've been advocating medical science and science advocacy since a good amount of time. And especially when the COVID-19 began, we started the research for COVID-19, and we basically advocated the correct information and also fact confirmation during this process. And today in our webinar, my professor from the Istanbul University, Istanbul Faculty of Medicine, Professor Dr. Yavuz Wilson, will be joining us for a webinar. And he is the head of Department of Medical Pharmacology in our medical faculty. And also he is in the Clinical Research Ethics Committee, and he works for International Clinical Trials Center Network. So without any further words, I will leave the microphone to our professor. Thank you very much.
Good evening. It's a real pleasure to have the opportunity to talk to our young colleagues, and I would like to thank to the organizing committee for this opportunity. And I would not thank so much for this very, very ambitious title of the talk. And I don't promise you that I will keep on that title very much. Because it's a subject of maybe 1 week course, and which I only could not accomplish that course. Anyway, I will talk a little bit about data and philosophy and infodemics, etc. And afterwards, I will try to answer your questions where I'm not very sure that I can answer. I know the answers. This is with the with COVID-19. No one knows the answers actually, but we are hoping to know the answers. So let me show my presentation. Is it okay? Can everyone see the presentation? I assume so. So
it seems nice, yeah.
Okay. So actually, some months ago, I was watching some webinars, and this was a very nice webinar of European Society of Cardiology. And there was a dialogue between two professors, which came to my attention, which I find very striking. So Barbara Casadei, the lady on the left hand side, she is a cardiologist, and the other gentleman, Bart van der Wolf, is a neurologist. And they were talking about stroke cases. Was there a decrease or increase in stroke cases in Poland? And actually, it appeared to be a decrease. And they discussed the reasons, but it is not important. The point was this. Barbara asked, what do your data show? This was the question. And after a while, Art said, gave some answers, but we came up with the statement, the lessons learned. What are the lessons learned was the question, the beginning, the original question. But then she ended with, what do your data show? And he said, the lessons learned will come later, after a few months, maybe a year. Then we will know what we have done wrong, what we have done right. And I find this very striking. This was actually, we knew the situation before, but COVID made this really very clear. You know, this is how we work. This is how we do clinical trials, and this is how we generate actually clinical knowledge. We do something, but we don't know if it is right or wrong. At this moment, we have to wait. We generate data. I'll talk about it later. We generate data. We are data generators for data scientists, actually. We clinicians. I see myself as a clinician because I see patients, I do clinical research, and so on. So we generate data. We send the data to some other people who we don't know. They kind of process the data, and then they send us some information, which is a little bit alienated to our original work and experience. And then we try to turn that into kind of a knowledge. And with that knowledge, we try to treat our patients. This is a very strange situation. And people, I read some of your texts, which are very correct, but people are really alienated to science and medical profession, and they are not very wrong in that, because this alienation affects everyone. We always say that regarding the vaccine, for instance, we say there are some vaccines on the third phase. After that, we will know. People expect that, say, in November, we will finish phase 3 studies, and people think they will have the vaccine by the end of November, but which is not true. In best case, you will have information from the trials, etc. But this delay, we know the reason of that delay, but this is our scientific attitude and so on. But it's not very easy to explain that to common people. So let's talk about data, information, knowledge, and there is this discipline, epistemology, which is philosophy of knowledge, and they create many terms. There's a complicated terminology, but we can shortly talk about data, information, and knowledge. They are used interchangeably, which is another difficult term. In Turkish, for instance, we use for all the three actually one term, bilgi, but we have to define it more clearly, and we have to create, if necessary, new terms. So what is the data? Data is something we extract from the environment. Actually, data is any signal which comes to our attention, to our perception. And it's plural, so the lady was right in saying, do your short, because it is plural, and she's Italian, so she belongs in Latin, of course. It's the plural of datum, and datum is, of course, in German, date. Anyway, data, and this is principles of matter and energy, and whatever you look at, you can generate data. If you are a conscious being, I mean, we are the only conscious beings here, but we are talking about now artificial intelligence and computers and so on. They can record data as well. So the word regarding the data is actually extraction. But this is very important. Data are raw and they don't make sense on their own. You have to memorize this. This is my message. The data cannot show anything by itself. This is an illusion. And this is part of the confusion we are in regarding COVID, regarding clinical research. results regarding economics and etc. Data cannot by themselves generate information. So this is very good. I would like to thank to my resident Yasin Onur for preparing most of these slides. And this statement is very nice. You can think of it as the results section in a research paper. Results. Okay. Then we come to information. And in information, actually, acquisition data is there's acquisition, and then if information, the word describing information is processing. So the acquired data is processed through different disciplines and sciences, and then it can make sort of sense. So information by itself does make sense. It carries the signal from one system to the other, and it causes some change, either a cognitive change or a biologic change. But information is that kind of process. So it corresponds to the conclusion section in a research paper. It's processed data. Then we come to knowledge. And knowledge is, okay, this is a little bit romantic, but when life is given to the information, comes knowledge. It involves the human factor. So it is interpreted information. The word describing knowledge is interpretation. Okay? So it includes awareness and experience. The discussion part of a paper, research paper, can represent the knowledge. Knowledge is the ability to put the information to use. Okay, knowledge is the answer to the question. So, and beyond knowledge, I don't have it in my slides. Knowledge mixed, enriched with experience and so on is called actually wisdom. Our medical profession, say, it's called an art more than a science, really relies on kind of wisdom. So we have to accumulate knowledge and mix it with, enrich it with our flavor, with our experience and interaction with other individuals and so on. And we need to turn that to wisdom. And this is actually what a machine cannot do, or I hope so. So, in scientific method, classically, you have a question, you have a hypothesis, and you have a prediction that you test your hypothesis and analyze and prove it's either wrong or right. The danger on relying to naked data science and the belief, the religion of data, the belief that data can generate knowledge by itself, neglects actually the hypothesis. We have big data, and we have data mining, and we have different fancy techniques for playing with the data, but they always bring the danger of omitting hypothesis theory. This is important. The belief that data, naked data itself, you put data into a machine and the machine calculates, and then you create information, knowledge for that information. It's a very interesting. I'm sorry, I didn't know. Watch. So we have the term evidence-based medicine, and we tend to rely on evidence-based medicine, and we are seeking firm objectivity. Evidence-based medicine, but we should not forget actually the reason of existence of evidence-based medicine is actually medicine is not physics or not a profession like engineering. We don't have always solid data because we don't choose the field where and we cannot restrict the field where we can we gather data like in engineering. So we have always in heterogeneous data, heterogeneous information and conflicting information from different sources, and we have to build a hierarchy for these sources. This is what evidence-based medicine is about. So as you can entertain yourself in reading this, but the downside is we have then we work with data and information. We have misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. And this brings us to the term infodemics. This is described by right at the beginning of this pandemics, COVID pandemics. They described the term infodemics, and they said it's might be actually more dangerous than the pandemics itself. And the term infodemics has become fashionable. Now, I would like to do this. This is kind of my own philosophy, of course, based on medical knowledge. With the virus infection, actually, we have kind of an information, an affair of information. Also, virus is not a living organism, actually. It's just an information. And the envelope which carries the information. Virus gives its information to living cells, and then that information, with its information, it infects those cells who are capable of living, and it makes them to reproduce its information. This is basically what the virus is about. It's a piece of information. It's a misinformation which leads the organism, the host cell to work for the advantage of the virus and for disadvantage of itself. There is an information fair. And more than that, there is another thing. There is something about knowledge as well. This is biological information. Virus is biological information. You can see that in many other diseases as well, in cancer, in autoinflammatory diseases, etc. I wrote an article which will appear in kind of psychiatry. This is another story. Here you have another misinformation, misknowledge, misinterpretation story, which is quite specific to COVID-19. You all know now it is not the virus which kills the patient or causes the illness. It is the reaction of the organism, our body, to the virus, which is inflammation. Actually, this very fancy term, cytokine storm. So actually, the immune reaction, which is supposed to isolate the virus and then stop its multiplication, etc. But at the end of the day, this overreaction, immune response causes the damage. So it is really information which is not handled properly. Actually, it's a misunderstanding. It's wrong knowledge. This is what I call toxic knowledge. So it's very interesting terminology. We have information, virus information. Virus infects the host cell with its information, so it's infection, and the body reacts in a, say, inaccurate way. With inflammation is, of course, the protective behavior, but in the COVID-19 case, it's an overreaction. Maybe you have heard that the bats who are carrying all the variety of this viruses, it should be viri, they don't get infected. Only they get rabies, I guess. They get infected with rabies. All the variety of viri they carry, they don't get infected. They get infected, but they don't get sick. Why? Because their immune system is adjusted. Because the theory is, because they are flying mammals, they waste a lot of energy, and they have a lot of cell waste because of this over use of energy. So they have always anti-genes. So their immune system is kind of down-regulated, and they don't overreact to viruses, viri. They don't get sick from COVID-19. But we have over-inflammation, it's a misunderstanding, and through that we have some intoxication. Because of we have toxic knowledge, toxic interpretation of the virus information. So it's enough about the biological information. We have now the social or cognitive information, and which is called infodemic. And here is the paper, and WHO really launched a platform to combat misinformation around COVID-19, and they really try to slow the spread of disease and the epidemic of misinformation as well. This is a very serious thing. This is the statement about misinformation. Sylvie Bryant says, we know that every outbreak will be accompanied by a kind of tsunami of information. Also, within this information, you always have misinformation, rumors, etc. We know that even in the Middle Ages, there was this type of phenomenon. So the infodemics is not a new thing, but it's a giant thing in this information age, and using social media, etc. It has become really a serious problem. Because this is my medical answer, almost. People ask me all the time, when will the drugs and treatment will be available against COVID-19, when will be a vaccine available? And the answer is actually, I expect, of course, there are some choices with the drugs, but we are not sure about the safety and effects. And I believe by the end of this year, I have reasons to believe we will have a couple of vaccines. But the thing is, it has been quite fast, actually. It has never been, to my knowledge, no epidemics, no pandemics has been solved in the history of humanity with a drug or with vaccines at the beginning. What matters is actually healthcare, public health operations. They are not the infections. They don't solve the very pandemics. Actually, the most important medical branch is public health, the most effective although they look like kind of old-fashioned and kind of like social science, it's the most effective, most aggressive uh, part of medicine, public health. Although in my profession I stand on the other side, but it's very important. And public health is what solves pandemics. With the infodemic, I mean, all the people, the media, etc., they really obstruct the public health services because people uh, actually not what you do, but what you don't matters at the beginning, and then they buy us time, and at that time we develop or prove the efficacy of drugs, and we find out where to position those drugs, and then we can develop vaccines. Meanwhile, what matters is always public health, and really, infodemics is a very major hazard to public health uh, portions. So, there you see the people, the non-believers, the heretics against COVID treatment. They say it's a lie, it's flu, it's a game, it's a weapon or so. And this is your statement, and it's very important. Who benefits from this misinformation? There are many, of course, media and social media. People do weird things just to get attention, and this is something which gets attention, and the media is very interested in making news and making sensation. Every week, every day, actually, in March, in February, March, beginning April, I had to appear every day on television because every day there was a new treatment. People talked about it. There was a new rumor, etc. And there are people who benefit from such things. And one is, of course, these so-called snake oil treatments, miracle cures, alternative treatments, and complementary treatments, and even vitamins. In Turkey, with COVID-19, the vitamin sales, they really lasted. And I know that companies could not find raw material regarding vitamins. I'm not saying that vitamins are useless, but this is another story. But until now, no vitamin can is useful against. There is no right way. There is no proven vitamin use against COVID-19 until now. There might be. This is another story. But for that, we need more evidence. But the snake oil treatments, they made a lot of benefit, and vitamin sales until now, I can say they are snake oil because there is until now no proof. They did a major benefit. You can see commercials and so on regarding boosting your immune system. No one knows if boosting the immune system is good against COVID, as I told you at the beginning of this video. No, of course, your immune system is not your friend always in COVID. This is how this information is distributed. And there are, I like this very much. This is the COVID effect on me, actually. COVID made me into wear spectacles, glasses. I had to read always social media, etc. So I started using these devices. So no human user. There are robots which spread fake news. There are different advantages interest groups, etc. But this is how you see vitamin C and D are effective against coronavirus. Some profit from that. And coronavirus is just a flu. Someone has there is benefit. And US government patented the vaccine, French government, COVID-19, etc., etc. So this is how it distributes and multiplies, how this information grows exponentially. And there are artificial intelligences working on this area. I find this very much. Viruses, viri, travel through transportation network. This is epidemiology, and information travels through online social networks. This is infodemiology, and with that, there are really systems dealing with this. And this is realized to a paradigm for spreading phenomena in general, behavior, emotions, pathogens, and information. And there we have infodemics. So go back to our biological analogy. When we associate a viral outbreak with its cognitive counterpart, the infodemic, there we have an immune response as well. Of course, there are different immune responses, immune response society. These days, actually, we are experiencing some dangerous immune response, which is ignoring the epidemic and pandemic, and the cases are increasing. People go on vacation, people go to celebration, people go there and there, and the numbers of patients are increasing because this is kind of an immune response as well. So, not unlike what COVID physically does to our bodies, the clinical course of its infodemics is partly due to the immune response created by the scientific community. There is a useful immune response as well, but there is a useful immune response, biologically, of course, at the beginning, when the virus enters your body, your immune system is very important. But after the virus enters the cell and starts causing damage, then the immune response is not very useful. And we have that kind of two-sided immune response. We have a healthy immune response in the scientific community. We try to generate healthy information, knowledge. But on the other hand, there is a really sick, like the cytokine storm, there is a publication storm, which is not very healthy and which brings us to this conversation. Does the scientific community overreact? Yes, definitely. You see the bars for publications, you see the trials, and data sets. You see the trials are much less than the publication. Everyone is publishing. Everyone wants to publish in COVID-19. This includes me and my team, and Professor Emine Akalın, who is listening to us, I guess. We did publish, and we try to publish. Everyone wants to publish. And every day, new thing. This is old, but I am sure the number has increased. Everyone brings something to the scene for COVID-19 every day. There are new actors, new gadgets on the screen. And this is from a paper, Lancet paper. So let me read. Let's read out that here. Up to 90% of new entrants into clinical trials never make it. This is a rule. This is not just for COVID. Every product which enters, be it a medical device, be it a medicine vaccine, but only 10% make it. 10%, of the number which enters the clinical trials, not the molecule, candidate molecule. There you have 10,000 molecules and one of them succeeds. But if the candidate can make it to clinical trials, then 10% of them can make it the approval. And the understanding of COVID-19 keeps changing, and people are trying as many shots as they can have, so they can increase the chances to make the market. But there is the dark side of that. Of course, there are some good actors and bad actors. This is really taken from the paper, and some of them are really heroes, and some of them are, again, citing the paper, just jerks who are working in the field, and they just produce rubbish and garbage, and we have to deal with that garbage as well. Journals are flooded with submissions on COVID-19, and there are scandals with very prestigious journals. We have witnessed that. And the media is hardly reporting on any research other than COVID-19. This has passed a little bit. This paper was from March, I guess. Somewhere I will cite the paper. And too many scientists are working on the same subject in rushed manner. Everyone, we have to face this. Scientists are not. They don't have higher moral than the industry. We tend to believe, we tend to enjoy that idea, but this is not true. Scientists are not more ethical than the industry. They have different ways and different expectations. They brings the illusion that they have higher moral values, but it's an illusion. We cannot count on it. We have to be very critical there. And making so much noise that separating valuable signals from that noise becomes difficult. I said data are actually signals. And the pace is not that rapid. It's nature doesn't allow it to be so rapid. Yeah, we need to find cues every day for our patients, but it just doesn't go on that fast. And we have to be coordinated, but on the other hand, we don't want to spend too much time getting coordinated because we are in a rush, we are in competition, and the use of the resources are limited, and there's scattered use of resources being money, resources being laboratory, resources being information, knowledge, and resources being actually passions. Although we have scary numbers, actually there is not enough. There are not enough patients for all these trials. And many small-scale trials that aren't really designed to answer the questions, and we have to read we've created. Not really very valid information like that. And drugs that looked promising in small trials prove ineffective in bigger studies. But I tell you, this ineffectiveness will prove wrong as well in more bigger studies. We will be surprised, I tell you. And a collaborative approach is needed, and different countries develop different approaches. These are some examples. These are the famous AIDS drugs, and this is the study. But look at the conclusion. Actually, you cannot even conclude that the combination does not work. See, future trials in patients with severe illness may help confirm or exclude the possibility of a treatment benefit. This is typical paper conclusion. understand what they say. You know, a serious study, which shows a real, serious negative result is very valuable. Most of the studies until now, currently negative studies, actually they were even not able to show a decent negative result. They were resultless. This is the problem. And this is very interesting. You must have heard, maybe you might have heard about ivermectin. It's an antiparasitic drug. You see the paper title? Read it. It's in itself misleading. They are cheating. You see, what does it say? The FDA-approved drug ivermectin inhibits the replication of SARS-CoV-2 in vitro. I was called by the press in the morning. They said, you know, in Australia, they found a drug which cures, which kills the virus, and it's approved by the FDA. You know, the title gives you the impression as if the drug has been approved by the FDA in this indication, in this very indication, which is a lie, because this is approved by the FDA. It's an antiparasitic drug used in animals and in some countries in people, but it is not approved for SARS-CoV. It's not the case, and it's just inhibits. Actually, yes, it stops COVID true, but in vitro, not in human, not in animals. Okay, in that tube. It is promising. I actually, there are some studies. I expect something from this drug and similar drugs, but this title, I tell you, this is unethical. So there is, of course, conflict of interest. The greater studies cost more, and large and comprehensive studies take time, and there are some of them are supported by pharmaceutical industry, and no pharmaceutical industry supports trial with old and cheap and available drugs. This is what they do. You know, generally they don't kill you when you find a cheap treatment, but they have ways to silence the information. So they don't do these, like, you know, secret agent stories. But on the other hand, they propagate the expensive treatment so much, and everyone is interested. They make it fashionable. They make so much noise you cannot hear the smaller, silent information, because they spend a lot of money for their research. And actually, we owe many treatments to their research. We have to give them. And the position of the scientist, we criticize companies for their financial standpoint. We talk about common good. We talk about scientific progress and scientific curiosity. But most of us are interested in their H indexes, their citations, their publications, their New England Journal of Medicine publications. So we come back to evidence-based medicine, and David Sackett, the inventor of evidence-based medicine, said evidence-based medicine is not restricted to randomized trials. It's not just about randomized trials and meta-analysis. It involves tracking down the best external evidence with which to answer our clinical questions. So we have to make the best of the available evidence. We should not rely on fake evidence. We should not rely on invalid, in a rush evidence. We should not rely on false positives, but this is very important. I tell you, false negative results as well. You know, at the beginning, this thing, the virus was still, it's a legend. It's a super virus. It can spread, it can jump 8 meters, can stay here, say 76 hours, and so on. Things which cannot be possible together. Uh, they were together because of the rush and because of not sensible, insensible research. So you have to doubt negative results as well, I covered. So this is a very nice cartoon. This is the time spent looking at exponential graphs growing exponentially. I'm not talking about that. I'm coming to the end. I'm not going to talk about much data science, but we have to be really critical with data science. There was a very nice paper years ago, 10 years ago, about an alchemism, a data alchemy. You know, I super believe to information technology. Like you can, alchemists in the Middle Ages, they um, said that they could turn copper, or I don't remember the English version, blind German word, to gold with alchemy. Now the IT technologists, the IT modern alchemists, paper states, state that they can turn raw data to knowledge. And there are these data people, there are these biological uh, data scientists, and there are data scientists who work in engineering, who work in machines, who work in economics. And they said at the beginning, you remember the time everyone came up with some graphs and some apocalyptic uh, predictions. Some predicted 80 million people will die this year and so on. So this is again, there is this saying: the one who has a hammer in his hand sees everything as a nail. So this is human nature, and this is human subjectivity, and this is valid for scientists as well, and even for data scientists for an area which looks very, very solid, which is not, because if your data is not correctly collected, uh, whatever fancy technology you use is futile. So what can we do? There is this global coalition to accelerate COVID-19. Their recommendations. Trials should be adequately powered to generate evidence. They should not be giant. They should be adequate for the statement they want to make. They need to be large enough and well designed. Priority should be given to interventions that reflect the specific needs of countries and are readily implementable. This is very important for the vaccines as well. For resource poor settings, that means interventions need to be affordable, available, and adaptable to healthcare systems and the populations they serve. And the adverse impact of COVID-19 is very important in low-income or middle-income countries. So there should be kind of a positive discrimination on their side. Clinical trials and evaluations of affordable and implementable interventions of all types, behavioral, organizational, medical, and supportive, are a priority. And there is this conflict between the maximum recommended and minimum essential requirements to conduct a trial. And in low middle income settings, the infrastructure required to support clinical trials, preparation of trial products, materials, protocols, case report forms, databases, these are our business. We can talk that in another occasion. And statistical supports and so on is seldom readily available. There should be support for such trials. This pass. And who to trust? There was one of the questions on your side, I guess. Although it has been very much criticized, WHO looks hard on this issue, and global and local health authorities, peer-reviewed journals, and first we should not do harm. And there is a very nice statement of yours. You should take responsibility. This is really promising. It's very small in us, the older colleagues of yours, that you are taking this business so seriously and you are taking responsibility. It's very important. So, where do we stand? There are 218 vaccine candidates, 24 of them are in human trials. There are 511 therapeutic candidates. Some of them are repositioned, which means they are already being used in different disease differences. I think some of them are completely new, and more than 10, I would say more than 10, are in human trial settings. Who recommends this moment just supportive therapy and no specific antiviral agents, whereas our Turkish Ministry of Health, and which my impression is they are not completely wrong. The impression of my, of course, impression is not enough evidence, but they are running for some publications. So our Ministry of Health has still hydroxychloroquine and favipiravir in their protocols, and for pregnant patients, we have propionic. So this is different, but there is reason to act like this. I hope they can go on this with some serious complications. And about regarding data, there are some data initiatives. One of them is Eden, like Heaven, European Health Data and Evidence Network. We are there, Istanbul University, Istanbul Medical Faculty, are their data partner in COVID-19. We are dealing now with our data, and really it's a hard topic. In ICN, when I was the president, I tried to initiate a data task force, and I am still leading the task force. But it's really very hard business. There are rules, there are regulations, they change, and data protection laws. It's a very important thing. And really, it's a hard business. This is an IMI, Innovation in Medicines Initiative project of the EU. But we see it's quite hard, really. It's very hard at the beginning. You have to have correct data, and it's a very hard business. And we had some Euclid project, EU project, we submitted Oxford and other valuable partners. Euclid, we scored 14 of 15 points, which is a huge success, but we could not get the money. Next time, I hope. Euclid was again data and a more some part of it was data and some part of it was clinical trials and so on. I hope we can work with it further. And these are the finances. And this is my last slide. I know that I have philosophized and I talked about vague subjects. I did not give you solid information which people like to have. So for the more solid information, I invite you to our webinar of Istanbul University Center of Excellence for Clinical Research and International Clinical Trial Center Networks. Network is going to take place next Friday, and there will be many valuable colleagues from throughout the world, even head of the actually, his name, Jack and other Thomas from Cambridge and William being from China. We'll talk about different aspects of clinical research on COVID-19. The name, I'm really proud of the name. I found the name. The name is going to be, the title of the meeting is Race Under Pressure. And if you are interested, you can go through that link and join the meeting. And with that, I thank you for your patience. Are you there?
Yes, I think we are here. Thank you for this very good webinar. It was really, um, how I can say, initiative, and it was really philosophical. I have many notes on my notebook right now, many philosophical stuff to remember in science advocacy. I have some questions, but before that, I want to ask our members if they have any questions, because I think that there might be people who might want to ask something.
I have a question, Professor. If it's not too much trouble, how can us as individuals help in stopping false information, especially infodemic spreading from online? And how can we aid our family members to identify, like, with an easy way, which data is trustworthy, which research paper is trustworthy or not, given that they do not have a specific training or knowledge of medicine?
Well, I find sincerity is very important because the false information did not start with COVID-19. For instance, in my career, I have always fought with the anti-statin cult, you know them, cholesterol cult. And I know there is a anti-cholesterol cult in China as well because we went every year to Beijing for the Cardiology Congress and we will be joining it online this year. And there was this cult to convince your patients, to convince your family members, even to convince your colleagues who are not specialized on that area. You have to be sincere. You should not drown them with flow of information. You have to really share wisdom, and you have to be sincere. You have to be critical. You have to show that you are critical when approaching that information you share. You know, this is very essential, and you have to, of course, use an understandable, sincere language. And you really you have to have the ability to see behind that conclusion. You have to look behind it, and you have to be able to extract really the knowledge you can use. This is what I can say. And I of course, there are guidelines. Who has guidance, etc. You can check. It's another story, but this is my opinion.
Thank you so much.
So, are there any more questions? Maybe. Or maybe to influence people, I can ask something. So we talked about the exponential rate of articles, and we know that I think it's been until now, from March 2020, there has been many articles regarding COVID-19, and there has been many data that we've been talking about, and everyone is saying something else about the rate of the virus, about the future of the virus. So is data really important to have a comment on, or the experience of a scientist is much more important than the data? Or is there a balance?
Of course, data is important. Before the era of evidence-based medicine, and I have witnessed that area. Say it's before 90s. Really, the experience was very important, and this was another dark age. So using the data and being aware of evidence is, of course, very important. But it is like that, you know. There is this discussion: who created the virus? Huh? Did the Chinese in their laboratory, or the Americans, or the Russians? Actually, the system created the virus. It's very obvious. You know, too much travel, too much money, too much consumption, and too much information. It is all this, you know, this capitalist system and the Konsumgesellschaft, consumption society. So all are the virus is the result of that society. If you know, people say if we had this virus, say on the 18th century, actually the virus could not spread that much. This is not something like lepra. This is not that powerful. This is actually a let me say it Turkish. It's a dandik virus. It's not that powerful. It's kind of it's not like measles. It's not like rabies. But the system that much traveling. You know, I have flight fever, and I am kind of happy that I don't fly that much. Do we have to fly that much? Do we have to consume that much? Do we have to have so many meetings? Do we have to have so much tourism? You know, you saw the spreading ways. How from Wuhan, how did it go to Milan or southern areas of Italy? It's because of trade. See, so approaching data, producing anything, we produce too much. We do produce too much knowledge. We do produce too much information. We do produce too much cell phone. And we consume too much energy. And this is, I'm not a religious person, but this is really the punishment of doing that virus. So we have to approach the data cautiously. We have to be more environment friendly. You should not consume too much air, too much water, too much information. Actually, Bertolt Brecht said something like that. Occurred to me. The wise man doesn't consume any, not a piece of light too much, not a piece of air too much, and not a piece of thought too much. Actually, this is not Brecht did not say that directly. He made Apoina zero to say that. But you see, this is a very nice statement. I guess.
It is indeed. Thank you for the answer. So I guess we have one question from Irem Akhtar. We send an I from the message. So
Yes, thank you very much for your presentation. I was going to ask about the term you use, infodemic. It looks impressive, and when you hear it, I want to say, like, how do you see that it is going? How do you think about its flow right now? Because it's been a long while, like almost 5 months since the pandemic started. Is it increasing or decreasing? And how do you see if it is like more in the normal folks like us, or like in the society, in the scientific society that you are mostly close to? Does it actually matter?
Yeah, you talk about infodemics. I actually at the beginning I showed one slide. It was about infodemics. It wasn't about information. It was information on infodemics. So it went a little bit down. It took its peak on March. I guess then it went down. People get bored. People get bored of everything. You have to have always a new agenda. Politicians do that intentionally. Press does it intentionally. They have to sell always something new. So the infodemics is going down. Like the pandemics, it's not over. And there can be a second wave. Actually, I sensed that we have the second wave regarding vaccines. You know? we had the prevention measures that people were talking about. Schools everywhere. Are they going to open the schools and so on? Now it's time for the vaccines. How do I know that? The people from the media started calling me. They did not call me the last 2 months, which I am very happy. Now they started, so I say, there's a second wave of influence. But where is it going? This is the nature of the system, and I don't see it very well. Maybe COVID-19 taught us the hard way things. I hope that we take that lesson. But with these, the very thing what we are doing at the moment, this webinar, we should not get used to. This is my message to you. See, don't get used to that stuff. Don't get used to leave people outside. Don't get used to meet people, to talk people like this. Really, you should go back to face-to-face, of course, with the distance and mask and so on. But this is our mission: staying human and keeping the human relations, and not carrying everything to the clothes. Yes.
So we have one question from Sude. You can ask if you like to, Sude. Or is she here?
Actually, about the vaccine, there are a lot of sayings and humors saying that the trials haven't stopped yet and they are doing, unprecautious stuff. So I kind of want to learn your opinion regarding this.
You started with Russia. I did not hear that part.
Yes.
Russian one, the Putin vaccine. Yeah. So we have to be serious and cautious there as well. Well, the explanation and the way they propagate it is here. It's wrong, definitely, because they are, as far as we understand, are on the phase 1 trials, safety trials. So they have to go through phase 2 and phase 3. So it will take, with the speed of the vaccines, at least 1 year. Actually, it's not normal. It's 4 or 5 years. But everyone speeds up and tries to help. So I guess they will need kind of 1 year. There are vaccines who are much closer to results. There are actually even the president explained that, and the Minister of Health of Turkey, and who explained this as well. There are 5 vaccines which are closer to closure. 2 of them, one is this Oxford vaccine, with one company, so you are professionals, I named the company Astra. This is AstraZeneca vaccine. The other is, we are of course proud because there is a Turkish origin person, Onur Şahin, sorry. This is BioNTech, his company, and they are working with Pfizer. These are giants. And there are 3 Chinese companies, at least, at phase 3. I think Chinese are more forward. They started using one of the vaccines. This is kind of a rumor, but using in soldiers. So they are more. They are approaching phase 4. I have heard of that in India they have started producing one vaccine. I don't know in which phase they are. So there are 5, 6 more advanced vaccines. Of course, this doesn't mean, and I think they will conclude phase 3 on November, but this doesn't mean that then they will succeed. Some of them will fail, but we will know more. Regarding the Russians, there was news today. They asked me because I know that the Russians want to start phase 2, 3, and they want to work with Turkey. And the Ministry of Health of Turkey said we might perform some phase 3 trials. People have criticized them. I don't see why, because I don't think that the Russians are. This is fake news. This is not fake news. This is just a little bit premature. So I'm sure they have serious development, and if they have solid information and solid evidence, of course we can collaborate with them for phase 3. Even us in our ICN, one of the partners is developing some vaccine. Swiss are developing some vaccine. Maybe we are negotiating. We can start early phases of vaccine trials here in our institute. I don't know. I'm not sure, but we are discussing. So this is the status. Okay, regarding Russians, it's not wrong. It's not right. It's not right behavior. But I'm sure that they have some information and some science, and we can work together. And of course, there are 3 series Turkish vaccine candidates supported by TÜBİTAK, TÜSEP, some universities. One is in Ankara, one is in İzmir, one is Kayseri. But there are on animal phases, and I am looking forward to see their results as well.
So are there any further questions? Or maybe before we finish, I want to ask one last question about vaccines. So we talked about there are many nations right now developing vaccines. So is there going to be a problem of differences between nationalities, and like is it possible to say for us like, okay, I don't trust the Russian vaccine, but I can trust the English vaccine which is being produced in Oxford, or something like that? So
No.
the vaccine is out, are we going to ask the nationality of the vaccine?
Of course not, and this is really stupid. There is again a statement. I want to repeat that. You can check that. There is a statement about nationalism. Of respect, but I don't want to get too political. Who is curious can search Google. This is stupid. We trust, of course, knowledge and evidence. And if I would trust Chinese vaccine, because they are informed. They started before. They started almost in January with the virus. Actually, they shared the information, and after that, it's the reason that we were so fast in developing vaccines. Everyone, I say we, humanity, not we Turks, we Albanians, we something, we scientists and humanity. So if I would trust, I would give the shot to the Chinese, because they have 5 candidates. But this is really, it's a good question. The thing, talking about a national vaccine or national drug, etc., is old-fashioned. No one in this age develops anything behind closed doors and behind closed borders. We have to. We spread this. I'm sorry for saying that. We spread this shit together. So we have to stop that together. There's no other option.
Thank you very much for the answer. So again, thank you for this enlightening webinar, Professor. And I think we can end it here. It is 7:20 p.m. in Turkish time, and also 6:20 for the European time. So thank you everyone for joining to our webinar today, and the recording of the webinar will be published on YouTube as soon as possible. We edit it. So thank you and have a good night. And again, thank you to our professor.
Bye.
Thank you so much.